This is ADX Florence, America's most feared prison. Inside these walls are the nation's most violent criminals, locked in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day. The only break? A tiny room called the empty swimming pool, where a small skylight lets in the light, but nothing else. No contact, no freedom, no hope. Escape is impossible. This is the prison that even hardened killers fear, a place built to erase every sense of freedom. Step inside, if you dare, and witness life in America's ultimate supermax.
ADX Florence, built south of Florence, Colorado in 1994, is the most secure prison in the United States prison system. America's only federal supermax prison is home to some of the world's most dangerous criminals, including names you might recognize. Today, we will tell you about the Florence Supermax, America's toughest prison. 7. What is a supermax prison? Supermax prisons are the highest level security prisons, designed to hold inmates that pose extreme security threats. Inmates have little to no time outside of their cells, very few activities, and very little contact with other humans. Alcatraz is considered to be an early example of what would become the supermax model. The controversial penitentiary on the outskirts of Florence, a small rural town once founded as a pass-through for coal-carrying trains in the 1800s, first started housing inmates in 1994. Today, ADX is home to 361 of the country's most high-profile criminals. Prisoners here, we're talking serial killers, terrorists, mobsters, cult leaders, drug kingpins, and those deemed too violent to live among a general prison population, live in near-continuous solitary confinement. Inmates spend 23 or more hours a day isolated in soundproof 7 by 12-foot cells outfitted with a single 4-inch slit for a window. Due to these conditions, the ADX has been at the center of contentious debate about human rights and solitary confinement's effect on mental health. As Robert Hood, a former warden of the ADX, told the New York Times in 2015, this place is not designed for humanity. In fact, the decision by a London court in early 2021 not to extradite Julian Assange to American soil can be partially attributed to his possible assignment to ADX. The judge, Vanessa Baratzer, said that her impression of the WikiLeaks founder's mental state was such that it would be oppressive to extradite him to the United States of America. The ruling implied that 23-hour-a-day isolation would be too iron-fisted for someone exhibiting depressive and suicidal behavior. Assange is currently jailed in southeast London. The last time ADX made headlines for a high-profile individual was in 2019, when Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the leader of Mexico's Sinaloa drug cartel, was relocated to Colorado after being sentenced to life plus 30 years on international drug trafficking charges. With a propensity for violence and access to near unlimited resources, El Chapo was an obvious candidate for the ADX. He's twice escaped from maximum security prisons in Mexico. His jailbreak from El Altiplano in the summer of 2015, in which he drove a motorcycle through a mile-long underground tunnel, is the stuff of movies. As was his recapture by Mexico's Marines in January 2016, which was preceded by a massive 6-month manhunt, a deadly gunfight, and El Chapo slipping out of an escape hatch hidden behind a closet mirror. No one has ever escaped the ADX, although there has been one homicide within its walls, which is why it's been called the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Most prisoners get out only in death, via transfer to another facility, or in very few cases, if they live long enough to see their release date. Number 6. The U.S.'s most secure prison. Commonly referred to as a supermax prison, it has 490 beds in a compound which encompasses 37 acres. The prison was designed to house prisoners deemed too dangerous or high profile for regular incarceration, and nearly 95% of all inmates that have been sent to Florence were transfers with histories of violent behavior in other prison facilities. ADX Florence is known for its harsh conditions. Inmates are kept in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day. The hour they are allowed out is into a bigger cell with vaulted ceilings called the empty swimming pool. This room has a 4-inch by 4-foot skylight as the only window. It is designed to prevent the prisoners from knowing where they are, and they still spend this time alone. For at least the first 3 years, prisoners are not allowed to come in contact with other prisoners at any time, anywhere on the premises. Over time, good behavior can earn inmates more outside time, and for the most fortunate, a possible transfer back to a less secure prison can await. The cell furniture is limited to a desk, stool, and a bed, and each is constructed of poured concrete. The toilets are designed to shut off if plugged, and the showers are on timers. Rooms may have mirrors, lights, radios, and in very rare instances, televisions, but these are used as privileges based on behavior and are seldom awarded. There is no mess hall. Food is hand-delivered to each inmate by the guards. The prison has a multitude of motion detectors and cameras, 1,400 remote-controlled steel doors, and 12-foot-high razor wire fences. It would be difficult to classify the prisoners as being unfairly treated, given the circumstances which likely got them there. Former ADX wardens have described the place as a cleaner version of hell. The prison operates under the strategy of sensory deprivation and solitude. Inmates are left to their own thoughts, which often leads to hallucinations, memory loss, and increasingly irrational behavior. Number 5. ADX has a reputation for being escape-proof. El Chapo has escaped prison twice while being held by Mexican authorities, in 2015 and 2001. But ADX is different. Nicknamed the Alcatraz of the Rockies, no one has escaped the facility located in the high desert about 2 hours south of Denver since it opened in 1994. Inmates are housed in soundproof 7 by 12-foot cells for 23 hours of the day in permanent lockdown, with no contact with other inmates. Staff members are carefully vetted and have little direct contact with inmates. Each cell contains a bunk, desk, stool, and shelf made of concrete, and a steel sink and toilet. Inmates can see outside of their cell through a single window that is 3 feet high and 4 inches wide, according to the New York Times. Most cells have televisions. According to the SF Gate, ADX is the only prison specifically designed to keep every occupant in near total solitary confinement. Number 4. ADX was born after the killing of 2 correctional officers. According to the Washington Post, ADX was conceived in the wake of the killing of 2 correctional officers on October 22, 1983, at the Marion Federal Prison in Illinois, what was at the time the toughest federal prison in the country. After their deaths, Marion was changed into an all-lockdown facility and served as the test model for other supermax lockdown facilities like Pelican Bay and eventually ADX. Number 3. Worse than death. Current C1 columnist Robert Hood, who served as ADX warden from 2002 to 2005, described life in ADX in stark terms to CNN. As soon as they come through the door, you see it in their faces. That's when it really hits you. You're looking at the beauty of the Rocky Mountains in the backdrop. When you get inside, that is the last time you will ever see it. The Supermax is life after death. It's long-term. In my opinion, it's far much worse than death. Number 2. It holds many high-profile inmates. A facility for the worst of the worst obviously holds a lot of criminals with household names. ADX Florence is home to some of this country's most violent and evil criminals. It is also the #1 holding facility for convicted terrorists. One of the most famous residents is Thomas Silverstein, a convicted murderer and former Aryan Brotherhood leader who has committed 4 additional murders while imprisoned. Silverstein currently holds the record of being the longest resident of solitary confinement in the United States prison system, having been in solitary since 1983. Silverstein is often credited with being one of the reasons the ADX Supermax was designed, due to his uncontrollable activities in other prisons. Historically, the addition of another life sentence to a prisoner who already has one hasn't proved successful. Harsher penalties were needed to restore order and deter prisoners from killing prison guards. The threat of being transferred to solitary confinement at ADX Florence is the best deterrent in the prison system the United States has against violent crime. Number 1. The problem with Supermax prisons. Daniel Faithy, the director of the National Prison Project at the American Civil Liberties Union, wrote for the ACLU about this problem, saying, "In overcrowded prison systems, the typical response has been to fill the remaining Supermax cells with nuisance prisoners, those who file lawsuits, violate minor prison rules, or otherwise annoy staff, but by no stretch of the imagination require the extremely high security of a Supermax facility. Thus, in Wisconsin's supermax, one of the worst was a 16-year-old car thief. 20-year-old David Tracy hanged himself in a Virginia supermax. He had been sent there at age 19, with a 2.5-year sentence for selling drugs. The story doesn't stop in prison, though. While some in supermax prisons serve life sentences to completion and others commit suicide, the overwhelming majority of these prisoners are released back into society. In fact, 95% of supermax prisoners eventually are released. This reality means that everyday Americans should care about what happens in supermax prisons.